Okay, so continuing from the first video, what we're going to start doing is populating this video tutorial project that we created. So you'll notice that nothing's kind of lit up at the moment. It's waiting for us to embed some of our assets that we have stored in our project folder. So there's two ways that I can go about doing this. There's a few ways, but I'm going to show you two ways to begin with of being able to import your assets into the project to start to work with. So if we go to File, we can go to File, Import, and we can locate through our project folder that we generated any of our media assets. So I'm going to select this video clip and open it. Another way of doing this is within this project tab, just right clicking and going to import, and then again going and locating your files. I'll just hold down Shift, I can select two of those and bring them in. I could also go through my media browser here and browse my hard drive or any kind of external hard drives or flash drives that I have if my project is being stored on those, but mine's is stored on the desktop, so that's how I've gone about generating them. Okay, so now that we have our assets in, the next thing that we're looking to do is generate a sequence. At the moment we have no sequence generated, so the timeline is not populated. And remember, the sequence effectively is the settings for your intended output for your video. Okay, we looked at them initially in the first video. So what we're going to do is look at ways of being able to generate those. Now if I hover over these videos, you'll notice some of them are different file formats. We've got some AVIs and an MPEG-4 here. They're also different resolutions, but they all run at the same frame rate here, okay, which is going to allow us to kind of have an indication as to where we're going to go in terms of setting up our sequence. So there's a couple of ways that we can go about doing this. What we can do is we could create a sequence using the existing settings of these videos, but as I said, these are different. But let's do that just so that you can know how to do it. Now if I select one of these videos, I'll just left click on the mouse and then right click, I can go to New Sequence from Clip. And what that's going to do is it's going to generate this sequence which is matched the sequence settings of this clip, so in terms of resolution and also the frame rate. And what it's also done is it's populated the timeline for me, so I can see the video sequence in place. Okay, so I'm just going to, we'll just delete the sequence here, just hitting the delete key once I've selected it, and I'm just going to show you the same thing with this nursery video, which is at HD. So if I right click, create sequence from clip, and hover over it, you'll see that it's matched these settings, and this wee icon highlights the fact that it's a sequence and it's now been put into the timeline for me. And what we're going to do is generate a sequence. If I right click in the project tab here and go to new item sequence, this is going to allow me to go back to that kind of new sequence settings and sequence presets that we had initially at the beginning. I could go to settings here and go through creating perhaps a custom setting. Say for example I was wanting to create something at 1280 by 720, 29.97 frames per second. Create all the settings that I wish and hit OK, and that's going to generate my sequence for me. What I'm going to do, just for the purposes of this video sequence, I'm just going to stick with this standard DV widescreen, and I'm just actually going to use these settings here because they should match up with the videos that I have already, particularly with the frame rate. So we'll call this video sequence and OK that, and that should now populate my timeline, and also it's popped up on my project folder. Now you can have multiple sequences within this project folder, and you would notice these just appearing as tabs along the side. What this is now ready for me to do is waiting for me to do rather, is populate the timeline of the sequence. So what we'll do is we'll take one of the videos and drag it down and pop it on. Okay, so if I scroll through, notice that the video is just playing quite happily. Okay, now before we start looking at editing this video in any kind of way, shape or form, I'm going to bring in another video sequence, and I'm deliberately going to bring in this larger of the two, or the three rather. Now when I drag this down, I'm going to put it onto a second video layer, and you should notice that if your snapping is on, this video will snap just to the end of the video sequence. So when this video sequence plays through, I'm just holding in the left mouse button and my time scrubber here. It's going to jump into this nursery video. Now we can see a lot of the video sequence has been cut off. I can check that by double clicking and viewing on my source window here what the video should actually look like. So if we just take this back to the start, and then this back to the start, you can see the difference. This is obviously zoomed in because of the size of the video. So one of the first things that we're going to look at doing is scaling this video down, okay, and changing the effects controls on the video sequence. The first thing that we're going to have a wee look at, however, is this red line that's appeared up here, and you're going to find that that appears when you start bringing in multiple assets into your timeline. And really what this is indicating to us is that the work needs to be rendered out through the program in order for it to be able to kind of use its memory efficiently and allow us to be able to run and play back the video without any kind of stopping and starting, the frame rate starting to kind of jump and skip frames. So in order to render this out, we go to sequence and render entire work area. What it's going to do is it's going to render through all of the frames that make up this completed sequence from start to end for these two videos. Okay, so what I'm going to do is it's going to take a wee while just going through all these frames. So I'll pause the video and come back to it once it's done. Okay, so the video sequence has now been rendered out, and you'll notice that this red line has now reappeared rather as a green line, which is meaning that the playback is going to be a lot smoother when I start viewing it in Premiere. Now, there's a couple of things that we're going to have a wee look at here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at resizing this video sequence to fit our sequence settings. I'm also going to look at removing the audio from this clip. Now you'll notice that when I brought in the video clip itself, the audio layer was populated. Now this sequence here doesn't have any audio on it, which is why there isn't any audio on that layer, and I want to remove this and delete it. Now a couple of wee things to look at when we're working within the timeline. I should mention that obviously that dialog box that popped up there was just auto-saving my file format. Something you want to make sure that you're doing, continually saving the file. I'll come back to looking at autosave in one of the other video tutorials. But to continue where I left off, these video layers and audio layers can be expanded by clicking on these wee kind of arrow tabs, which will collapse and expand the layers for you. And it just hides a couple of options here. One in particular when you're working with video, which is quite important to have a look at, is this set display style, and if I click on that we can show frames, and what that's going to do is it's going to show me the thumbnails or frames that make up the video sequence. Now that brings me to this kind of slider here, which allows us to kind of not only zoom along the video sequence but zoom in and zoom out. So if I'm looking to edit a particular frame or point of the video, that's going to allow me to see the individual frames, and as I zoom in on this, the more frames it's going to allow me to see. Okay, so I'll just zoom back out again and I'll just collapse that for just now. You can also hide this video layer by clicking on the wee eye icon, and I can lock the layer as well, which brings me to removing the audio from this video. Now I'm just going to zoom out a wee bit, zoom out so you can see everything. If I select or click on this nursery file, you'll notice that both the video sequence and the audio sequence are selected or highlighted, which is great if I want to move them together, so they're kind of interlocked in a way. But what I would like to do is remove and delete this audio. Now if I select this and hit delete, what's going to happen is it's going to delete both of those. I'll need to re-render everything again, so I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do, however, is I'm going to lock the video layer, which allows me to select the audio on its own. And this can be done vice versa by locking the audio layer, and that would allow me to select the video sequence on its own. Similarly, you can mute the audio track by clicking on this icon here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the audio and just hit delete, and now what I have is two video sequences with no audio in them at all. The last thing we're going to have a look at in this video is translating the properties and the scale of this video sequence using our effects controls, so that we can kind of match it and get it to fit in the size of the screen. So I have it selected at the moment, and if I go up to my effects control tab here, I can view my timeline along here. And we're going to be looking at this in a wee bit more detail in the next videos when we start looking at animation and keyframing. But what I'm interested in here is if I expand this motion tab and go down to scale, you'll notice that it's sitting at 100% at the moment. What I can do is reduce this just by holding down the left mouse button and pulling away, and you can see I can change and affect the size of the video sequence. So at this 46%, it looks like that is a kind of suitable size for the framing of my sequence. And now if I'm to play the video sequence through, it's adjusted to suit. You'll also notice, however, that this red line has appeared, which is looking for me then to render the entire work area. So that's what I'll do, and I'll end this video. And then on the next video, what we'll look at doing is some video transitions between the two of these, and we'll look at also producing some animated keyframes.